Welcome to this SUNRISE workshop on the role of society in connected automated mobility safety validation. My name is Julie Castermans from Ertico ITS Europe. And together with my colleague, Ainhoa Arrieta, the SUNRISE organization team, and our two other panelists today, whom I shall introduce next, I would like to thank you all for being with us today. The purpose of this workshop is to explore societal expectations for safe automated mobility and how to gain citizens' trust in CCAM. As a basis to kickstart the discussion, we'll have a few presentations first. SUNRISE coordinator Stéphane de Vries from Eploidiada will give a short introduction to the project. Jason Zhang for Warwick University will provide a summary overview of the SUNRISE Safety Assurance Framework. Giacomo Cantini from ICOR will then present some of the SINFONICA project work and results related to the topic of this workshop. And then so will Joanna Kallio from VTT for the OptiPEx project. If we can go to the agenda next, please. So this is an overview of what we have in store for you today. After the two presentations from SUNRISE, we'll have some time for any related questions, and similarly after SINFONICA and OptiPEx presentations, after which we'll open the floor for discussion. We have prepared a few questions to steer the debate, which we'll hope will be as open and participative as possible. So we really invite you, engage you all, panelists and participants alike, to share your insights freely. And so without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Stéphane.
Thank you, Julie, for your kind introduction. Let me go to the next slide. So here you see a short overview of the agenda for today. Like Julie just mentioned, I will kick off with a short welcome and SUNRISE project introduction. And then after that, my colleague Jason will take over to give you a short, high-level introduction to our main product of our project, the Safety Assurance Framework. And then there will be some time for questions, and then we'll get into the panelists that are with us today from SINFONICA and OptiPEx. But let me start with a short introduction to the SUNRISE project on a high level. So here's a short video of just 2 minutes, which I would like to show you because it explains on this high level what our SUNRISE project is all about. So let me start with that. So that was a very short, high-level introduction to the SUNRISE project. Hope you liked this video just to get started on the topic. I personally like it a lot. I'm very proud of it. So hope you liked it as well. So the main goal of our project is to develop and to provide what we call a safety assurance framework for CCAM. And CCAM is standing for Cooperative, Connected and Automated Mobility. And this framework should fulfill the needs of different types of entities in our society, as we will see on a slide just here after. So SUNRISE stands for Safety Assurance Framework for Connected and Automated Mobility Systems. It runs in total 3 years and will end this August of this year. And the total budget is about 13.5 million euros. And if there's one key phrase or sentence that I would like you to remember, is that best describes the SUNRISE project, that's the following phrase. So the decade-long debate in scenario-based assessment is now converging into a common basis. That's exactly what we're trying to do in the SUNRISE project. So like I just mentioned, there's various entities that all have their own different interests in this framework that we are creating. Here you see a few examples of those entities. For example, vehicle developers, they might ask us the question, what scenarios should I test my automated vehicles for before I can release them onto the market? And then there's certifiers or regulators that might ask us questions like, how can we assess the safety of these automated vehicles before we can release them onto the public road, before we can put our stamp on it? Or researchers working in this field can ask us, how can I compare my automated vehicle test results to those of others working in this field? And tool developers can ask us, how can I make my tools fit to those of others working in this area? So to those questions and many others, in SUNRISE we are trying to provide the answers, and we do not do so alone. We do not start from scratch even. There was a predecessor project before SUNRISE, which already laid the foundation for what we are now continuing in our project. And also we're highly connected to other initiatives around the world. For example, to providers of scenario databases like Streetwise or SafetyPool, but also to other initiatives like ours in other regions of the world. For example, the VNV Methods project that recently or last year finished in Germany, very important sister or twin project. And then there's the Sakura project in Japan, or the AVSC initiative in the United States. We're highly connecting to all of those to make sure that we really create a harmonized framework more than another silo. That's not the intention, of course, to build another silo in this field. So let me show you an overview of the partners that are on board in our consortium. You see them here on the screen. Of course, most of them based in European member states. Also a partner from UK and some external partner from the US. But besides this consortium, we also connect to external experts like you on this call, and also to other related initiatives like ours in other regions of the world, like I just mentioned. So that's the consortium that we are working with in our SUNRISE project. And again, here you can see that the entities that are forming part of this consortium are actually very similar to the ones that you just saw a few slides earlier. There's researchers in our consortium. There's vehicle manufacturers in our consortium. There's public authorities that take care of regulations and certification in this area. So again, here you can see the wide variety of stakeholders that each have their own particular interest in our safety assurance framework. Here again, you see a little bit an overview of how we reach out to the other twin projects that are working on this matter of safety assurance of CCAM systems in the rest of the world. Like I just mentioned, we have a very big sister project in Germany, Also in Japan, the Sakura project. In Australia, we also initiated certain collaborations, South Korea, and in Canada and United States. So we really, in this way, try to provide that harmonized framework more than a silo. This is a recent picture of our team. Our team in total is more than 150 people, but this is a handful of them, a certain fraction that got together in San Sebastian last October, to join for a General Assembly. And with that, I'd like to conclude this project introduction and give the floor to Jason, who will give you a short introduction to this main product of our project, the Safety Assurance Framework. So Jason, go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much, Stefan. Let me just take control of this, and also I'll bring up the laser pointer at the same time as well. Yeah, okay. The facilities are working now. So yeah, so first of all, let me actually run through the SUNRISE Safety Assurance Framework that we have developed. And just bear in mind, we have a tiny bit of the to-dos in the Safety Assurance Framework, which we plan to tackle from now all the way to August. So that can still be a very minor change, but I think we're very happy to announce that most of the work are pretty much being finalized. And within this work package distribution of this whole SUNRISE project, the Safety Assurance Framework actually sits at the center of this. So yeah, so a lot of the other work packages in SUNRISE are actually to answering different elements of the Safety Assurance Framework. And at a high level, Safety Assurance Framework on its own actually contains 3 main blocks with a input layer. So the Safety Assurance Framework contains the audit and contains a performance assurance and contains in-service monitoring reporting. So without going into too much of the details, let me give you a little bit of a very high-level summary of what is audit and in-service monitoring, and then we will then focus on the performance assurance, which is the key scope of SUNRISE to unpack in this webinar workshop. So audit actually include, for example, how to assess a developer's safety evidence, that including also the management system and how they actually perform the test. So that include a much wider technical and also non-technical aspect of the whole process. Whereas the in-service monitoring and reporting actually is mainly focused on how we capture unseen, unknown scenarios during the initial performance assurance. So this could happen, for example, during the deployment stage of the system. But then that actually leaves us with a big question now: how can we actually perform the performance assurance as part of the certification or safety assurance stage of the system? Yeah, so this will be the main focus of the SUNRISE. And just before we unpack this, all of these blocks actually receive input from the bottom layer, which will carry the information of the system's operational design domain, the system's behavior competency, and plus any other external requirements. So for those of who might not be fully familiar with the operation design domain, basically it documents the system's capability on what kind of conditions it can handle. So conditions belong to the ODD, including what kind of scenery layout and the road and the junctions, and also the environmental conditions that the system is designed to operate in safely. So they do not include in the behavior. So behavior is another separate categories of the system capability. So now let's go into unpack the performance assurance process. So the performance assurance, you can see at a high level, we have the scenario, the execute, the analyze. So that means that to perform the initial performance assurance process, one would need a set of scenario to be executed in a execution environment, and then to be able to analyze the execution outcome in order to make a decision of the system's safety assessment. And yeah, so basically to summarize, you need a scenario to execute, and you need to be able to analyze the execution data. So this is a very key one-line summary of the performance assurance. But if we want to unpack a little bit further, each of the block can then be unpacked into their own individual sub-functional elements. So scenario will further contains the creation of the scenario, the format of the scenario, and the storage of the scenario. So scenario creation, during the SUNRISE project, we have identified two main categories for such creation. So a very common, and maybe all of you are somehow familiar with, for example, you must have heard the creation of scenarios based on accident data. So for example, in the UK, we have the STARS-19 accident database, which is released by the government. And so this is directly a data-driven scenario generation approach. So if you create scenarios based on such accident and then to use it for testing the system, then we categorize this kind of scenario generation as a data-based approach. And the other approach is a knowledge-based approach. So for example, without seeing any of the real-world data, perhaps you have an in-house expert who are very familiar with the architecture of the system. And through a systematic approach, the expert might be able to actually create an interesting scenario in order to stress test the system's architecture. So this is a way that we call a knowledge-based scenario generation approach, which is primarily utilizing the experts' domain knowledge on this subject matter in order to actually create scenarios. So at this stage, we are mainly concerned about the semantics of the scenario. So for example, what needs to be covered, but we are not actually really concerned about what format the scenario should be actually represented. In order to make the scenario exchangeable and also commonly interpreted in the same way across different partners that might be concerned of the safety assurance process, the scenario needs to be actually represented in common and widely acknowledged format. So in this process, we have identified in the industry 4 different levels of scenario abstraction, from the highest level, which we talk about the functional scenario, and then to the abstract scenario, a logical scenario, and then concrete scenario. So these are the industry widely acknowledged 4 different scenario abstraction, being functional being the highest level, and then concrete being the most lowest abstraction level. And some of the key candidates across this abstraction level, including the at the abstract level. So we have the British standard BSI Flex 1889, which is focusing on a natural language-based scenario description format. So allow end users, for example, regulators or people who might be not dealing with testing in a programmatic way on a daily basis, that they can exchange the scenario in a natural language format. And at the concrete level and also logical level, we have also the well-known the ASEAN Open Scenario Open Drive standards. So they are primarily used for simulation domain, which focus on the machine interpretation. So these are very accurate and concrete defined detail level. So once we have the scenario being created and also represented in different format, the next part is the scenario storage. And in SUNRISE, we have proposed what we call a federation of scenario database, which is a layer itself does not actually contain the scenario, but this allows you to actually access different scenario database, which are qualified to link to this layer. And a user can then directly interact with this federation layer and to incorporate their searching criteria. And then we will be able to return the matching criteria based on this query criteria back to the user. So then the flow actually then leads to the query and concretize block. So this is the first interaction block of the external user. So external user will then interact with this query and concretize block, input their searching criteria, and then via the SUNRISE federation layer, the matching criteria will then be sent back to the user to perform a subsequent testing activity. And the next block will be the allocation. So the SUNRISE safety assurance framework actually is agnostic to any specific environment, which means that all possible execution environments are considered as part of the SAF, that including the most abstract, simplistic level of simulation. For example, object list based to more advanced simulation to even real world based testing. So all these are qualified execution environment. So to be able to actually assign the scenario to a adequate environment is actually the next with this allocate block with the function of this. And in the SUNRISE project, we have defined a very comprehensive allocation mechanism to allow user to actually identify the most appropriate execution environment for the scenario, and then we will perform the subsequent execution. And during and post execution, we will then perform 2 steps of the analysis process. One is what we call the coverage, and the other is the test evaluation. So test evaluation actually will compare the execution result of the individual test, and if the system passed, then you can see at the top there's a red feedback arrow which will actually, based on the result, this feedback arrow will optimize the next scenario parameter in order to actually stress test whether the system can maintain safety across all the appropriate scenario parameters scope. And if after multiple such iteration, the system can sustain safety, then we can say that at least from this perspective, we have covered wide enough range within this parameter range, and the system can still maintain safety. So we can then pass to the next decision block. So just to maybe further clarify, the test evaluation actually is evaluate individual concrete parameter test. So let me give you an example. If the scenario says we need the system to be safe in between 50 to 70 km per hour, then the test evaluate will then evaluate the safety of the system at individual concrete value. For example, you might start with 67 km per hour, and if it's safe, we might want to choose a different value to test the system until we have covered enough between this 50 to 70. So test evaluate is actually evaluate individual concrete execution, whereas this feedback arrow will then be in charge of fully optimize the exploitation path across this 50 to 70 in order to say that the system is safe. And this will then be contributed towards our coverage concept. So combined with the coverage and also individual test evaluation result, this will then enable us to actually make a decision on the system's safety assessment. So this is actually a very quick high-level overview of the SUNRISE safety assurance framework. And I think I might have rushed some of the functional blocks. So hopefully it gives you a good overview of this whole process. And if you have further questions, we can also address in the later Q&A part. So with that said, I think I'll hand back to you, Julie.
Yes, thank you, Jason. There's actually the right moment actually to see if the audience has some questions. You may ask your question using different channels. There's the Q&A, so you can type your questions, or you can raise your hand and I can unmute you if you want to ask your question directly to Jason or to Stefan for that matter. So I'll give you a few minutes Q&A or just raise your hand. Just checking. At least I don't see any hands raised. Maybe some people are typing. If not, then we will. I see a hand raise, which has been lowered immediately. So I don't know if it's still valid. Sir, Mr. Zdenek Zatopek, was it? Shall I allow you the mic? I don't know. It was a mistake or if you have a question. Okay. Right. There are no questions in the Q&A, so I propose that we go straight to Giacomo for Sinfonica, and in the second Q&A session, there's always some catch-up possible in case you have another question. So Giacomo, I invite you to take control and go to your own slides. We will start with your presentation.
Thank you. Yeah. Can you see the screen? Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Good afternoon, and thank you very much to Sunrise Project team for this invitation. I'm very glad to be here today and share with you some of the preliminary results of the SINFONICA project that I'm representing today. So I'm Giacomo Cantini. I'm a researcher and a project manager at ICOR and at the University of Modena and Reggio Emilia in the northern Italy. So Unimore, the University of Modena and Reggio Emilia, is the coordinator of this project, of SINFONICA project. And okay. And that has a large title, as you can see, but finally the concept is quite simple and innovative at the same time, and it's just aimed at developing innovative strategies and methods and tools to engage CCAM users, providers, and other stakeholders, first to collect and then to understand and structure in a manageable and exploitable way their needs and fears, desires, and concerns related to CCAM. We started it at the same time as the Sunrise project. We will finalize the project in August this year. As you can see, we are 14 partners in 7 different countries of Europe, and our budget is well, something less than 4 million euro. Well, the SINFONICA project includes a wide range of activities, but today we want to focus on the data collection process that which played a central role in the project. This process, start with this process, we build up 4 groups of interests in different European locations: in Greece, in the city of Trikala, in the United Kingdom, in the region of West Midlands, in Birmingham, the city, and then in Germany, in the city of Hamburg, and in the Netherlands, in the province of North Brabant. These groups of interest involved citizens, people with mobility challenges, and various CCAM stakeholders, as you can see in the right part of the slide. Our slogan is we leave no one behind. So we try to be as inclusive as possible in this initial phase. Given the fact that the goal was to is still to understand the needs and the desires and the concerns related to CCAM of all citizens, basically of all of the end users, and specifically the ones with mobility challenges. So that's why we had like 5 groups of citizens that are common for all the groups of interests, and then each group of interest could include in their targeted groups some actors, the most relevant actors for their local context, while maintaining common guidelines, of course. So we employed as well different data collection methodologies. As you can see, we managed to conduct almost 300 interviews, 36 focus groups, 12 workshops, and then a survey that I will explain later on. these methodologies were tailored to meet the specific needs of various groups. For example, interviews were used to engage more vulnerable individuals, like such as physical or so people with physical or cognitive disabilities, or migrants, for example, with sometimes an issue with the language, for example, the spoken language. And then focus groups were used to gather groups with similar characteristics, such as the income level or the age or the access to public transport. And then workshops were organized to engage stakeholders like public authority, local authorities, public transport authorities, policymakers, associations, service providers, and so on. And finally, as I mentioned, to achieve a broader European perspective, we conducted a survey across all in the European Union, and we managed to get almost 5,000 answers, allowing us to move from qualitative analysis to more quantitative analysis and ensuring the scalability of our findings. So I have to say that these are still draft recommendations, as we are finalizing the analysis of the extensive data collected, as you can imagine. However, we are sharing some preliminary recommendations related to safety and security that actually were key concerns for the participants. Well, one of the primary concerns highlighted was the ability to contact an operator in case of an emergency. People are less concerned about having a person physically on board and more focused on knowing how to reach someone when needed. So our recommendation is to pick up a strategy and communicate it. So whether it's a 24/7 operator, AI support, or another solution, what matters is that users know how to get assistance. Then another key issue is the presence of a driver on board. If there is a driver, they should have specific training, and their role must be specified. How to assist passengers, and well, this training should be able to give them also the understanding of their responsibilities in this sense. Then another recommendation, it's related to the importance of security cameras on board, suggesting that they should have alert systems to discourage inappropriate behavior. And it is crucial to explain how these cameras work and how the collected data will be used to reassure passengers. Then, well, we can say that in the results that we gather, the trust in CCAM technology is deeply tied to perception of safety, and stressing the need for human presence or immediate remote support in emergency situations. Basically, people want to know if there is someone available to help, especially during night hours or in remote areas. As you can see, well, this is a sentence gathered during the the participatory sessions that I will read. If something happens when a bus drives autonomously, it will take a long time before someone is there, and there is only camera surveillance. So this concerns is about the response time, basically. And we know that it's not the same to be a man or to be a woman, or in a vehicle with no driver, for example, in night hours or in remote areas. Well, the feeling, the perception of safety can vary a lot among different individuals. Okay.
Giacomo, if I can ask you to go a bit more quickly through the last few ones, not to go too much over.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry, yes. So as you can see, again, the concerns were raised about the level of surveillance and with the focus on ensuring privacy while maintaining security. So also concern about, yes, data protection. And then it's important to clearly communicate how surveillance systems work, what data is collected, and how it will be managed. Again, and participants also emphasized the need for a well-defined emergency protocol. So clear protocols for emergency situations are needed. And security, defining which security features are in the vehicle, or as panic buttons, or the ability to access human support in emergency. So to sum up, we can say that safety was a top priority in this data collection process, encompassing both physical and social security. So more about the perception of safety. Participants valued environments that are clean and not overcrowded. And as I mentioned earlier, concerns heightened during evening hours or in remote areas. So to conclude, these are the next steps for SINFONICA project. In the coming months, we will hold 3 additional workshops to continue engaging stakeholders. In February in Brussels, we will have around the RTR conference, we will have a workshop for discussing strategies for developing and evaluating CCAM solutions. Then in March in France, we will have a workshop where we will test the SINFONICA simulation framework, that it's about different models to estimate the attractivity of specific service configuration for specific groups. And then in May, we'll have a workshop to present the final results of the projects and the SINFONICA tool. That is one of the main product of the project, the Knowledge Map Explorer, that it will be a digital tool that will provide easy access to all the information and the analysis made throughout the project. Additionally, we will develop a series of guidelines and recommendations for policymakers and future CCAM projects. And thank you very much for your attention, and I will invite to reach us out, to get in touch with us if you are interested in some topic in specific, or interested in have a common workshop within our project, and saying that we are always open to collaborations that promote inclusive and safe mobility solutions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Giacomo. I will invite immediately Joanna to present now the OptiPEx project, and we will take a question on both your presentation, Giacomo's, and Joanna at the end of her presentation. So, Joanna, if you're ready to take control, you can go directly to your slide, which is immediately following. Voilà.
Yes. Okay, thank you. So I am Johanna Kallio from VTT and coordinating the OptiPEx project, which is about optimizing passenger experience in public transport. OptiPEx is €4 million project with 11 partners. And we started the project 8 months ago in May 2024, and we will end the project in October 2027. So we are in a quite early phase with the OptiPEx. OptiPEx is dedicated to creating ethical, passenger-aware public transport solutions in collaboration with user groups and other stakeholders. Our aim is to improve passenger experience, promote inclusiveness, and build public trust in public transport systems. OptiPEx develops advanced technologies that evaluate passenger needs in real time when boarding or off-boarding and on board. And we are using that information to adapting conditions to enhance comfort, safety, and ease of traveling. On the right side, you can see the figure that describes the basic concepts and 3 key pillars of OptiPEx. This first pillar, measure, involves using unobtrusive, privacy-preserving technologies to continuously collect data on passenger behavior, different kinds of reactions, and surrounding environment. The second pillar is analyze, which applies machine learning or other data analytics to model passenger experience in real time, taking into account different kinds of anomalies, emotional responses, and contexts and individual needs. This helps us to enable personalized interaction with the services. And the third pillar is actually the interact, which focuses on co-creating and developing these interactive data-driven services, which then optimize the onboard experience and improve safety and inclusiveness. Then shortly about the main outcomes of the OptiPEx. These outcomes include passenger-driven service concepts for autonomous public transport, privacy-preserving data analytics solutions for continuous passenger experience assessment and situational awareness, and then also vehicle technologies for optimizing onboard experience, while also taking account in the privacy and security standards. And while we are technology development project, we will demonstrate and validate the solutions through 4 living labs, 3 trams, which are located in Austria, Finland, and Spain, and 1 shuttle bus, which is located in Germany. And this ensures that our solutions meet the needs of diverse users and align with the social expectations. Then I present a short overview of how we involve passengers in co-creation. So OptiPEx uses co-creation to understand passenger needs, for example, for assistance and vehicle control, and to explore also policy implications, trade-offs, and technical limitations. We will engage diverse passenger groups, including wheelchair users, passengers with large objects, for example, baby strollers or bicycles, and individuals with limited mobility or vision. We also have a kind of more normal groups like tourists and students. And With this, we aim to ensure that our solutions are rooted in real-life needs. Our co-creation approach follows 5 different phases. In the first phase, we identify passenger needs through online surveys and focus group workshops. And this is something that we have performed until now. In the second phase, we analyze these results to create service mock-ups, which then address passenger needs and safety concerns. In our third phase, we will test the mock-ups with target groups and other stakeholders via online and on-site questionnaires. In the fourth phase, we will refine the service specification and implement technologies for the use cases. And in our final phase, we will demonstrate use cases and evaluate their social acceptability with passenger target groups and other stakeholders. So like I mentioned, the first phase of this co-creation has been conducted, and here are the main findings from our focus group workshops. The main problems we identified included safety and security concerns. For example, disruptive passenger behavior, fear of accidents, and overcrowding. There's also quite strong need for inclusiveness and accessibility. For example, with mobility impaired passengers and those with large objects facing challenges when boarding or off-boarding. Also, visually impaired passengers struggle with insufficient information. Then what was mentioned is the environmental issues like poor air quality, noise or strong odors, and uncomfortable temperature variations. So these were the main problems we identified in focus group conducted in 4 different countries: Austria, Finland, Germany, and Spain. And then I want to highlight a few observations from these focus groups. Accessibility, which denotes the need for better system and infrastructure to support mobility and visually impaired passenger, is first one. Occupancy information is required to improve passenger distribution and comfort. Our focus group participants also emphasized the importance of maintaining human oversight in autonomous vehicles, and then they preferred multimodal communication, for example, using acoustics, visuals, and tactile methods. And this will ensure the inclusivity in public transport solutions. So these were kind of introduction to OptiPEx. You can find more information from our webpage, and of course I'm happy if you contact me and we can continue the discussion. But today I think that we can end the presentation. Thank you for your attention. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer, and then we continue the discussion during the panel session.
Thank you, Johanna. So now we open the floor for your questions to our 2 speakers. So both Giacomo and Johanna. As previously, I will invite you to raise your hand or post questions. I see a question is already posted in the Q&A. So the question is about the analysis of the qualitative data. So I'm just thinking we're going back to perhaps the JSON presentation. As this takes a lot of time, was the analysis of the data done in a centralized way, or was it done locally independently? Similarly, was all the data collected at once and then analyzed, or was it organized in waves? So first of all, can we confirm? Yes, I see the person. Yeah, better that you specify and you confirm. Voila, you can unmute yourself. That you specify if this is indeed a question for Jason.
Thank you. No, that was actually a question for the Sinfonica project.
For Sinfonica,
Sorry.
I had a doubt.
And I will probably it's sorry, and I will just maybe rephrase it because we're working on a very similar project, so the findings are very interesting, and actually it's very impressive the amount of qualitative data that has been collected. So the questions that I have were basically if all these data were analyzed by a single entity, by a single analyst, or more likely they were analyzed by multiple people, and now then the data, the results of these, all these data, qualitative data, were basically combined together. If Giacomo could explain a little bit about the process.
Yes, as I imagine that was for me the question. Thank you, Guido, for this question. Well, actually, of course, well, there are several steps, but in our consortium, let's say there are, first, there was a co-creation process. Well, first it was to build up these 4 groups of interest, no, in these locations I mentioned. Then there was a co-creation process with all these groups of interest to create the methodologies finally, and the guidelines to conduct, for example, the focus groups or the workshops. So to have, in order to have a common guidelines for all these different locations. Then there was it was prepared for by a partner of the consortium. The reporting tools, let's say, how to report on the interviews done, how to report on the focus groups, how to report on the workshops. The survey is another, it's just a bit apart because it was all online, and well, it's apart the issue. But so finally and then a single partner, but not alone, but we had some kind of collaboration in analyzing all this huge amount of data. But it was already defined. It was defined at the beginning how to collect this data. Then all this participatory approach was divided into 3 different rounds. So it lasted almost a year. It was like 2 months of the first round. So in every location, the responsible of this group of interest conducted the interviews, the focus groups, the workshops, and so on. And then there was like a stop. We developed as well an evaluation methodology, an evaluation framework to evaluate the quality of the participatory process. So there was a stop. There was an evaluation with the let's say the responsible of each groups of interest. There was a rearranging. There was a continuous improvement of the guidelines for so that there was this different steps of the process. So for the second round, we managed to rearrange some things of the guidelines of the questions in the interviews or of the workshop setting and so on. And it was 3 rounds, so it was, yes, a large process. and with several steps to make it well, basically from the bottom up, the bottom up process it was. I hope that I've answered the questions.
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Stefan, I see you have your hands raised. I don't know if you have a question.
Yeah, I have a question indeed, or maybe a comment. So first of all, thanks for presenting your overviews of SINFONICA and OptiPEx. I see you have been focusing in part on safety, but I think it's important to understand here that it looks like the safety you are focusing on is maybe a little bit different from the safety that we are focusing on in SUNRISE, and that's something to take into account into the further discussion. I think a lot of focus has been put by your projects on personal safety of users of the CCAM systems, so their personal safety. But in our project, it's more about the safety of the vehicle. So how safe is the vehicle on the road? So I hope you're still able to answer the questions that we have prepared for you. But I saw one interesting thing, at least in the presentation by Joanna, by OptiPEx. There was an item on the main findings called fear of accidents. And that is, I think, a very interesting point to highlight. Doesn't have to be now, but maybe that can come in the discussion part of this workshop. But I'm very interested to know about what that exactly means, fear of accidents, and how we can help as SUNRISE to lower that fear of users of CCAM systems.
Yeah. Indeed, that was one of the question we wanted to go into the discussion afterwards, and we can kickstart that debate anytime if there are no further questions from the audience. I must say, Stefan, that I have the same. I noticed the same. But I don't know if this is the SINFONICA project to put the focus on that security aspects over safety, let's say, of the vehicle, or if it was the participants themselves that seem to have more concerns about their personal safety and less, or that they are confident that the systems or the vehicle are safe enough or have been developed in a safe way that they trust already that somehow, and that their concerns are less focused on that. That's what I would like to know, if it is indeed the project themselves that went into specific questions or that spontaneously came up, and less so the concerns about the safety of the vehicle themselves.
Yes. If I can answer to Julie, it was more the second that you say. Finally, we were quite surprised actually, because in general there was a general positive feeling about the technology itself. So the confidence that if the technology will be implemented, it will be safe. So regarding the technological point of view strictly. So in general, of course, there were a lot of different opinions, but and it was no matter if we're young people or elderly, this general positive feeling about CCAM technology was present in all the groups of interest.
My understanding from reading your slides as you were presenting them is that people are more concerned that if there is an accident, that the response time, that there is somehow a remote manager or people behind that are seeing this in quick time, that there can be an intervention if there should be an accident. But de facto, that's not their first fear, that indeed the vehicle would not be safe enough, that there would be risks of accidents.
That's it. And actually, most of the time, it was an accident, let's say, about people behavior. inside the vehicle. That was the main concern about safety.
Yeah, that came through very clearly. I don't know. Let's see. I haven't seen any further hands risen nor questions in the Q&A. So from my standpoint, I think we can. Yes, Stefan. Please.
Yeah, sorry, but I still have this question about the fear of accidents. I'm very curious from
absolutely.
Joanna.
Absolutely.
Or do you want to treat that in the discussion
yes,
session?
I thought we could treat this in the part where basically, yes, we are interested in the feedback of Joanna's, but perhaps also somebody from the audience as to indeed how it relates to our safety framework. And that's one of our questions. So that's why I was inviting to move to the debate so we can come to that one.
Okay,
absolutely.
All yours. Sorry for my impatience.
No. I understand completely that we come down to the essence of this workshop. So as I was saying before, there are several ways that we can interact with each other. So people who want to raise their hand and be given the floor directly, I can unmute you. If not, while my colleague Ainoa will be guiding through the questions that we have, which are only a mere way to kickstart the discussion. Feel free to also ask more questions if you want, not just answer them. But what I wanted to say is there's also the Q&A. So feel free, if you prefer, to also share your insights or ask questions, participate in the debate through the Q&A. I will also monitor that and relay this in due time. So let's go then to this Q&A, and I invite my colleague Ainoa to ask the first question, which I will also paste in the Q&A for you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for participating in this workshop. Yes, my colleague Julie said, we designed 4 questions, but these are just to facilitate the discussion. Feel free to ask any other questions or, yeah. The first question is about how to gain society's trust. What suggestions or recommendations do you have for building public trust in the safety of CCAM systems and for meeting societal safety expectations? What concerns should be addressed? So please feel free to raise your hand and begin the discussion.
Joanna, go ahead.
Okay, so based on OptiPEx learnings, like I said, we are quite in the early phase, but my suggestion is to build public trust through this kind of active stakeholder engagement and transparent communication about safety measures. We have also put a lot of effort on GDPR to address possible privacy concerns. And it seems that the safety and inclusiveness should be highlighted as priority in this kind of messages that are targeted to different stakeholders.
Yes, Giacomo.
Yes, thank you, Joanna. I completely agree with Joanna. Actually, about the concerns, I think the first one, as I mentioned, that raised up in our activities, it's about how automated systems will handle real-world emergencies. And the second one that came up to my mind is just that what Joanna said about the data collection and privacy concerns. This is quite important as well. So it's important to clarify how personal data will be handled and how security measures will be maintained without compromising privacy.
Yeah, I saw through your slides. So people, as long as they understand that it reinforces their personal security, are not so much against the proper means being taken in order to ensure that, as long as it's properly communicated. But what I understand as well is that they still very much would like, I mean, they don't see the people, how shall I put it? At first, at least, even autonomous system, they still need the human intervention. They don't see that it's totally deprived of human assistance, not just for their personal safety, but also in case something goes wrong. And that's perhaps then going rather back to the safety of the systems. But it's not something that, and I understand then Stefan's concern, that is, let's say, validated, at least that I can understand how, but this is not something that we validate at the level of a vehicle, that it meets those sorts of expectations.
Yeah.
Yes. Go ahead, Mr. Quintana.
Just as about the previous question, and just something that is very important that we've seen in the general discussion is that, for example, also during the presentation of Sunrise, we have seen that CCAMs is the solution, right? And we have this first image with all the congestion, and then we have the CCAMs that solves all the problem. But I think it's important to understand, especially from the point of view of the public, that replacing human-driven cars with private cars, that's not necessarily understood as a solution. So it's important to, for the general public, to show what's the actual advantage of these systems and how they can actually benefit from themselves, because otherwise we can just increase the throughput of the network maybe, but that doesn't mean that we have less congestion, doesn't mean we have less pollution, doesn't mean we have more inclusivity.
Yes, Stefan, go ahead.
Yeah, that's a very valid comment, I would say, but for the sake of this workshop in particular, and our project for which we are reaching out, we have to try to draw this to the field of the safety of the vehicles and their technology. So for us, that's the important information to take with us in the further development of our safety assurance framework. How can we take the expectations or the trust of society into account into that safety assurance framework on our side in Sunrise that focuses on the vehicle safety, not necessarily the personal safety of the users.
If I piggyback on the latest comments, maybe we have to show that then we're not simply validating the safety of private vehicles, but also shared automated vehicle solutions. If we want to reassure societies that indeed we're not going to add more vehicles to the road through CCAM. Our safety validation framework is not just for individual automated vehicles, right?
Well, yeah, the vehicle can be shared, but the thing is that it's about the safety of the technological safety of the vehicle itself, not about, for us, it's not inside the scope if to address safety concerns on interpersonal relationships on board of the CCAM systems, for example, dangerous situations or threatening situations or that kind of safety, personal safety.
That is clear, but in terms of vehicles, and maybe that's what Jason wants to step in to say, in terms of vehicle types, we can validate all types of vehicles, right?
Correct, that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah, and also as the naming CCAM indicate, there is a connected vehicles in this aspect as well. So yeah.
Sorry, can you specify what you mean specifically, Jason? Didn't get that.
Yeah, so for example, the connected vehicle, vehicle-to-vehicle communication, V2X is a use case that we will be demonstrating in as part of the Sunrise. So as you said, individual vehicle level, but also vehicle to others and communication are all part of the SAF, but not right now the inside the vehicle, as Stefan mentioned, the passenger level safety that is maybe can be a add-on, maybe via other projects, but it can be a extension blocks when it's mature enough to our vehicle level SAF.
Yeah, maybe we'll come to that later on, because I noted a question I will have. But when we come to more specifically the question around the framework, we can go about that. But if I then join back the comment of Giacomo, if I can call you Giacomo, I think that maybe what you wanted to say is that when communicate then to citizens or the general public about what we're doing, maybe not just show individual vehicles, but then to confirm that we are checking that future vehicles are safe, and all types of vehicles, not just the individual ones that are perceived to be perhaps not the solution to sort out environmental issues and congestions and so forth. Go ahead. I see you have your mic open if you want.
Oh, no, it was just to, yeah, it's like this. Well, we don't have this focus on individual vehicles in Sinfonica, so actually, yes, we are thinking about more, not only, but on public transportation. And actually one of the things that we promote is to clearly communicate the benefits in terms of the benefits of CCAM in terms of environment. And a lot of participants highlighted this point. They have a lot of confidence that this will be actually a kind of solution of some environmental issues. And the other thing is that the autonomy issues for people with physical or cognitive disabilities, they are really looking forward to discover these new technologies that will allow them to improve their autonomy levels.
Okay, before I hand over to Joanna, I apologize. I think I meant to talk about Mr. Cantelmo, and I confused Giacomo with Guido, your first name. So I don't know if you want to add something to what we just discussed, or...
No, actually, I forgot to mute. Thank you a lot. Actually, the only thing that I wanted to mention maybe very quickly is that it's also important, and in that sense, I think the safety can also be quite important to align the needs of the different stakeholders, because in the moment in which the regulators have certain vision for the CCAMs and the manufacturers have certain vision for the CCAMs, then developing standards, also safety standards, can actually be extremely powerful tool to push this technology in the direction where basically we can both promote the environmental goal, the economic goals, etc. So, and that's what I liked a lot about this SUNRISE project, that there's all these different stakeholders. So yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Joanna.
Yeah, just wanted to add that that kind of showing the solutions in real life scenarios, so showing the different kind of scenarios and then evaluating the social acceptance with different stakeholders is quite good method to seek what the stakeholders what are the stakeholders' opinion, and also increase the involvement of the stakeholders.
Thank you. Stefan, go ahead.
Yes, yeah, I'm not sure about you, Julie, but I have the feeling that on question one, we didn't really get a clear answer for us to use in our project yet. I think a lot of interesting answers have been given in general, which will certainly help to get safer and better CCAM vehicles on the public road, but specifically for building or increasing the public trust in the technology of the CCAM system and its safety in that field. Is there something specific that we can do in the SUNRISE project to increase that trust in the technological safety of the CCAM systems. And here, sorry to come back to that again, but I'm very interested still in that fear of accidents and how to address that fear. So maybe now is a good time to answer that question. Yeah, perhaps Joanna, how about this fear of accident main finding of your project?
Yeah. So I can take this one and explain that we have one use case which focuses on pedestrian to vehicle communication, and especially during boarding and off-boarding. And like we have different kind of passengers group involved, some of them are needs more time to onboard or off-board. And what we found is that especially these passengers with special needs were afraid of accidents. This is, of course, the personal thing. But it was quite certain that avoiding this kind of accident should be in on the driver's side or actually in the vehicle side. So this is where the vehicle comes in the picture. And I think that this fear of accidents or unsafe conditions in pedestrian tram interaction is one that raised in Austria, Finland, and Spain. So it has a kind of impact, and it should be evaluated in more detail.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's a very interesting information, I think. But why specifically in pedestrians? Why not, for example, in cyclists or other vehicles on the road? Why especially for pedestrians?
Well, that's because of our project focus is more on the passengers, but it can be. We have also passenger group with large items, for example, with passengers with bicycles, and then it could be also communication between the cyclist and vehicle.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, that
we
sounds
have
like
just tried to scope our project, and that's where the limitations come from.
Yeah, well, to me that sounds like an interesting input for our project to take into account. Maybe Jason, would you have any additional questions on this particular topic, as you're more the expert in the technical side of the framework?
Yeah, I think right away, I think public trust, I can think of one example. I think without naming the actual developer or the brand of the vehicle, but a few months ago, there was a news of a automated driving taxis. So for example, actually managed to do a right turn, avoiding all the collisions, but a lot of the people involved, either within the vehicle or around it, actually commented it's not safe and make them feel safe. So I think addressing these kind of things are actually quite key. And just thinking out loud and brainstorming, I think at least two spots I can feel which we might be able to incorporate into the description of the SAF right now. One is as part of the in-service monitoring and reporting. So for example, that scenario I mentioned on the news is actually already during the system deployment stage, and we can actually then come back to record such scenarios. And then the other part is the contribution towards evaluation criteria. So maybe we need to further define our current pass-fail criteria to incorporate such definition of public trust, because I think to build public trust and to assess the system against this kind of trust level, we have to actually be able to define it, at least at a attempt to define it in the first place. So I think there are a few other projects which I'm aware of are addressing this or trying to address this. So I think we need a good definition of this, then we can incorporate into pass-fail, and then we need to be able to capture such scenarios as well if we have missed in the first place. Yeah, just some of my initial ideas after listening to this, but we can carry it further to our project discussion.
Okay, so if I understand correctly, yeah, the where these two meets is at the level of the scenarios, which you could include in the scenario database such a concern of, for example, accidents with pedestrians or vulnerable road users. Is that what you
Yeah, scenario and then evaluation criteria.
Exactly.
To be able to evaluate, yeah.
But so for questions of, for example, inclusiveness and whether there are safety aspects related to the fact that the vehicle can accommodate all types of passengers that Joanna mentioned, is there something that can be done at safety validation or not at all? Because somehow it doesn't touch any safety features of the vehicles itself. I was more thinking whether it's safe for these people to board the vehicle.
Yeah, maybe I will just quickly put some of my thinking, and then we can also open the floor as well. So I think the safety assurance framework is quite a modularized, scalable framework. Right now in the industry, the scenario scope, most of the scope actually covers at the vehicle level. So we do not really dive into the inside vehicle and the onboard passengers. But I do see as this topic getting more and more emphasized within the industry, there might be a add-on to the current scenario definition or the current workflow to actually dive into the next level. If we do so, then the safety assurance framework should be quite future-proofing. So depend on the type of scenarios and depend on the type of evaluation criteria, and the framework level should be able to cover to whatever the extent of the scenario definition.
Sorry, Giacomo, go ahead, because I see you have your hand raised for a while, so step in.
Yep. Yeah, thank you. That was just to again answer maybe better to this question, but what we have seen also about the gaining public trust, or we think that this should be important to have regular testings, including real-world scenarios that can highlight CCAM safety response. And I'm talking about a public demonstration of CCAM that working safely, of course, and that will be beneficial, we think, for public trust. And the other that already mentioned Joanna, but it's the transparency and the communications also on the safety features or the safety protocols within the vehicle, and then the measures to be implemented in case of emergencies, and also that in our results we have seen that human presence still can be specifically in a transition phase, let's say, should be maintained to gain public trust.
Thank you. I see, Joanna, you want to add to this? Go
Just
ahead.
to comment that it's quite often that people are scared of new technologies, and automated driving is, of course, one of these. So communicating more widely increase, of course, the trust.
Yeah, that is that's come back quite a few times, how we need to communicate. And we actually have a question related to that towards the end. But so basically, it sounded to me that we moved already to our third question. I think that as for the second question, we had somehow an answer previously from Guido Cantelmo, what you were talking about, the safety standards. And I know if you go to question 2, I don't know, if this is if we can be satisfied with the input of Guido Cantelmo, or if somebody wants to add to that one, because it sounded to me like we already touched to our third question, which was basically coming down to what we could do at the level of the SUNRISE safety assurance framework.
Maybe I could read the question number 2 in case someone else has any input, and then we can move forward.
Yes.
So question number 2 was about societal expectations, so managing the gap between expectations and the current technical realities. How can the industry ensure that societal expectations align with the technical realities and limitations of CCAM systems? How can CCAM systems be designed to effectively meet these expectations? That was the question.
So moving away from society's safety related or a lot security related, we saw concerns to specifically CCAM. Yes, I don't know, Giacomo.
Joanna, maybe I don't know if you.
Was it
you want
your
to
hand
speak?
still previously raised or still to answer this? Go ahead if it is the case.
My hand was previously raised.
Your hand was,
yeah.
sorry, Joanna.
Yeah. Yeah, no, sorry. Yeah,
Go ahead.
but for this, I mentioned already the scenario building as one tool to study this.
Absolutely, correct.
Should we move to the next one?
Giacomo, you want to add to
But
it?
just well, as it's clear about the Sinfonica project, the participatory approach is central in our approach. So answering the question about the design, we think that people, all different groups of citizens or different groups with mobility challenges should be included in the design phase, in the design of systems, of course, in a certain manner, of course, but this is for us the main thing to yes. To make that systems are effectively designed according to these expectations.
Very true.
Moving to the question number 3.
I think so.
This is specifically for the safety assurance framework. So how can the safety framework incorporate end users' feedback? So basically, adding to your question, when determining critical safety metrics such as accident rates and response times, should public input play a formal role in defining or updating the safety standards? If so, what mechanisms could be established to effectively gather and integrate this feedback?
So that's what we started with the question that Stefan raised and the input we already saw from Joanna's presentation. Go ahead, Giacomo.
Well, just because it's quite similar to the answer I gave right now. So, well, we think that public input should be gathered regularly through surveys or focus groups or public consultations, and well, and as I said in my presentation, we have developed a participatory approach and also an evaluation framework for this participatory approach that can be adapted to similar processes to gather these inputs, these public inputs. And yeah, and maybe establishing as well like advisory panels consisting of regular users, safety experts, community representatives. I think that you have already in your SUNRISE project stakeholders. You mentioned several different actors that could be maybe involved in a sort of advisory panel to gather this kind of inputs.
Thank you so much. Maybe we can move to the last question.
Yes.
So this one is about how to communicate and disseminate. What suggestions or recommendations do you have for disseminating SUNRISE results to a diverse and inclusive audience? What key messages should be conveyed, and which communication channels would best ensure broad and equitable reach?
So there we come to the key to the communication aspects, indeed. And whether it's in the context of projects, or perhaps a broader context. And when you were thinking, or you Sinfonica and OptiPEx, you were talking about, yes, communicating to citizens, that they would like for sure that the communication is transparent. What do you envisage yourself, or what do they envisage? Yes, go ahead, Joanna.
Yeah, for example, we have started to collaborate with the passengers with different, using different types of unions and associations, for example, disabled people. And of course, we also plan to communicate the results for the international and national passenger groups. So maybe these are also something that you could consider, if not yet considered. And I think that highlighting the safety and societal benefits of this framework is something that is good to emphasize.
If I may ask, which channels do you use to?
Currently, we are quite active in social media like LinkedIn, but we also plan to organize this kind of short presentations for different channels, emails, this YouTube, this kind of channels, quite normal social media channels.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, actually, I completely agree with Joanna. We also used in our process, let's say, we also got in contact with associations, community-based organizations, advocacy groups, let's say, and this can help. In our case, helped a lot to ensure well, that we could implement the participatory sessions. But in this case, we are sure that this can help ensure the message reaches diverse demographic groups. And then about the channels, of course, LinkedIn, well, LinkedIn basically, it's the most used by our project as well. But the thing, as marketing experts says, is to speak global but go local. In some, we went to the streets, let's say, to get the interviews. We reached also digitally vulnerable people. So let's say to try to communicate these benefits, that also I agree with Joanna that it's a key message to deliver, the benefits and the accessibility and the role of the public input, as we said before, in designing these new forms of mobility. Well, to communicate these benefits, we should also go to the local, to the local environments of our partners, of the consortium that build up a project. This is our suggestions as well.
Yes, Joanna, you wanted to add to it? At some point, I thought your hand was risen.
Yeah, it was again from the previous.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I sorry, I lowered it a little bit late.
No, to add to what Giacomo said, yeah, you did.
But I agree with him, and different kind of associations have been a good mean for us to, for example, recruit participants for the focus groups. So these are also a good way to communicate your results and maybe evaluate it to some extent.
That's what I wanted to add. I think it's through efforts which are tremendous. So I don't know that's something at the level of other projects like SUNRISE, which focus is essentially different.
Yeah.
We can reproduce, but that's for me indeed the most efficient, at least at this level of the development and deployment of CCAM, is how to get to these people and make them aware. And by having these discussions and showing that we want to involve them, that you have a better chance to first raise the awareness and trust in what it is we are doing, something that will take into account their concerns and their requests. Then at the moment, let's say, our general means of communication or social media, not that it doesn't reach them, but perhaps they don't know to search for that information yet. It's still, something not perhaps too well known by this sort of target audience, that we may need to put more efforts in going to them through these sorts of focus group associations, local initiatives that get into dialogue with citizens, so to say. I think that might be more efficient, but that requires more efforts.
Yeah, that's true.
And did you also find limitations in how they respond to you, or are they normally responsive and they want to get engaged?
It totally depends on if we found a right person.
Yeah.
Yeah, so both.
Okay.
Sometimes irresponsive, sometimes very active.
And for Sinfonica?
Yeah, no, there were, of course, some difficulties, of course, in the engagement strategies. But yeah, finally we managed, well, better said, each group of interest managed to reach the numbers that were quite ambitious. And we did different strategies with all, well, of course, we discussed them, and then each group of interest found their way. In Birmingham, they went to the central station to get some people, elderly people or digitally vulnerable people, to get interviewed, and so on, and or moving the location to organize a focus group in the premises of an association instead of your local authorities premises. Or so different strategies were used to reach the numbers and to get rid of these difficulties.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Before we come to our perhaps final questions and wrap up, one last thing about this Sinfonica simulation framework, Giacomo. I was just wondering what it was, and if this is something, when Jason was mentioning that in the future we might extend perhaps the safety assurance framework, if this is something that can be not perhaps integrated, but coupled with, to then test or validate certain aspects that are more than citizen focus or end user expectations focus. I don't know if that's what you have in mind with the simulation framework. What do you have in mind? Is this something that could be used by other projects? That's the bottom line.
Yeah, I think so. Well, I'm not actually inside this framework, and it's still ongoing, because I don't know exactly how it is, how it will be. But the idea is to use all this information that we gather during the project to create simulation models that could help to estimate the attractivity for certain groups of people of certain type of service, of CCAM services or service configurations. So I think that of course the safety aspect, it's a very really important aspect of these service configurations. I think that technically I don't know, I'm sincere, I don't know how it would be we will be able to do this merging, but I think there is a possibility to continue the the discussion and see how we will. If you are in the nearby, we will invite you to the workshop in France where this framework will be presented.
That's right. That's right.
And then we should discuss better about these possibilities.
Okay, noted. Stefan, one question for you. Did you get a satisfactory answer or something, what you wanted out of this workshop, or is there one more question you want to ask?
No, I think the time is running out, so I'd like to come to some conclusions and then maybe have a short feedback on that if you want to add or modify anything.
No.
Yeah, so I was taking a lot of notes during our interesting meeting. We saw that the focus of SINFONICA project, for example, and OptiPEx projects are much related or in part related to the personal safety of users of CCAM systems. And a small part of that personal safety has to do with the vehicle safety. And that's where we as Sunrise are coming in. That's where we have the little overlap between your projects and ours. And that's where I was trying to get useful inputs that we can use in a further course of our project to fine tune our framework. I think we got some interesting answers and tips there. And I liked very much what Giacomo said, that in general, they found that CCAM systems are generally trusted by the general public to be safe. So that's a good starting point. Very positive for us, of course. There's not a lot of effort to be done to be convincing people or users of CCAM systems that these systems are actually safe. We are quite good on that. So that's a good starting point. Then having that said, I think Jason correctly detected how we can incorporate possible feedback from this discussion into our framework, into our product, our project. And for example, that goes into the in-service monitoring area of our safety assurance framework, but also in the evaluation criteria, taking the public trust issues into account. And also maybe putting more emphasis on ensuring that specific scenarios, for example, with pedestrians or disabled people that are getting off or on board certain systems, are also represented in those databases that we use to test CCAM systems for safety. Make sure that that kind of scenarios are also taken into account. And then I would say the key takeaway for me, at least, you can say if you see differently, but I think generally it is very important to communicate safety-related aspects of CCAM systems to the wider public, because that helps to gain their trust and probably also to manage their expectations of these kind of systems. So I think there we have an interesting next step for ourselves, for Sunrise Consortium to take, to make sure that we broadcast, we communicate our results and our framework on an understandable level, of course, to the wider public to create that layer of trust, that we're actually taking care of the safety of the CCAM systems and guaranteeing that those systems are safe enough to be used by those users. So yeah, that's the main key takeaways that I think I took from this discussion, but I'm very much open to maybe some additional final comments from your side. Anyone on this call?
Thank you, Stefan. I think indeed you summarized very well also the key takeaways I had in mind. So thanks a lot for that. Yeah, one last chance to either ask a question, make a comment, participants and panelists alike. So one final chance of having a say. Seems
Well, I want just to
Yes.
thank you again for this invitation. It was really an interesting moment of discussion. I'm really glad to hear about this new project, well, a starting project, OptiPEx, that seems to me that, well, we are quite a lot aligned in the methodologies and in the concept, and of course looking forward to the final results or the final product of the safety assurance framework of SUNRISE. That is, of course, a great milestone in this road to CCAM solutions.
Indeed, thank you, Giacomo. We'll look forward to the publication of the final analysis results and the recommendations of the project. And we also wish good continuation to Joanna's project. I think we can also share, we can promise to share these slides to the participants of the workshop, and we can stay in touch for the next activities of these different projects we have presented today, but also mainly from SUNRISE as well, of course. Thank you all again for being here. Thank you for your inputs. And yes, Stefan, you want to say a final word before? Thank you.
No, sorry, I wanted to clap, but I raised my hand instead.
That's fine as well. Thanks you. Thanks a lot.
There you go.
To another occasion, perhaps. Have a good end of afternoon, and talk to you one next time.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Have a nice
Let's
afternoon.
keep in touch. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Keep in touch. Bye.